In today's video, I'm sharing easy dinner recipes that I know you're going to enjoy when you try them. I thought to be sharing these kind of recipes because I have seen a very good response from them, and I trust that you will love these particular ones that I worked on. Very budget friendly. A lot of them you can even work with them with your pantry staples, and we know during these economic times we need to make our recipes as simple as possible. So I trust that these particular ones I'm sharing today you're going to love and enjoy them a lot. Welcome to Recipes and Hospitality with Clara. This is a channel where we share recipes that are simple, easy to do at home with ingredients toned down, just like this one, to enhance your hospitality for the glory of God. And if you're new here and this is the kind of content you like, kindly consider subscribing, hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I upload new content. I upload this kind of content that is very simple to make with the ingredients that are most likely available right where you are. As is always our custom, we will pray and trust the Lord to grant us a fruitful time. Please, Father, be with me and my viewer. Grant us your help and your fruitfulness and creativity in the kitchen. We pray that even when it is tough, you will carry us through. So be with us as we work through these recipes, as they will work on these recipes as well, and grant that our hospitality will serve you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Let me say this before we continue. I will have the PDF of all these recipes in the description below, so you don't have to worry about how many ingredients and all that. I trust that that PDF will also be very helpful for you. And of course, on our email list, when you join that, you will be the first to receive a lot of the recipes that we share on the blog and that we share also on this channel. Let's begin with our very first recipe, where I am working with these Irish potatoes together with other ingredients. I've already peeled them and cut them into sizable pieces. As you can see, added some salt and water in my saucepan and covered. I'm going to boil them until they are just ready and firm, not mushy. So be careful about that. This is a recipe that you can both make one pot, as I'm going to do, or you can work with the potatoes separately and then just work on the stew, adding some more soup, making it a little more soupy so that it can go with the potatoes. So as we speak right now, they are ready. As you can see, just firm but not mushy, and I have drained out the water. You don't have to get rid of that water. We are going to add it to other recipes. So I'm going to deep fry the potatoes to just give them some kind of crispiness on the surface. But if you wouldn't want to do this, you can also feel free not to fry. But I just love the texture that frying gives to the potatoes. So what we will do, we will fry them until they are crispy, and I'm going to fry them in 2 batches. So meanwhile, as we are frying, we will begin to work on our, would I call it kind of like a sauce. These are budget-friendly recipe as well, as you will see. So I will begin by adding some cooking oil in my pan, about 2 tablespoons, and then fry the onions in the cooking oil. So as soon as the onions are tender, like I'm doing, we will add our garlic and get to fry the garlic until it's just beginning to turn a light golden color, the mixture. Then we will add in our tomatoes. So like I have said, do not worry about how much of the ingredients you need to use. I will have them all in the description below. And remember also, with many recipes, you can also feel free to give them your own twist. So you may use a few more ingredients than I have done, or even less, or add others, because what you just want is, as you keep practicing cooking in the kitchen, and especially budget-friendly cooking, the Lord helps us to get very creative. So I had added my tomatoes, as you saw, gave them 2 or 3 minutes on fairly low heat, and as they were getting tender, just uncovered and got to stir them once again, and then used my wooden spoon, as I'm doing, just to crush them, because we want them crushed as much as possible so that we can have, just a nice sauce like stew. So I've added in salt and some paprika. And keep remembering also that you can add in spices as you would like. I've also added some black pepper. You can add more, you can add less. Interestingly, at the time I worked on these recipes, I was low on groceries, but I just worked with what I had. So I didn't work with a lot of spices. I'd run out of many of my spices. So I'm adding some saucy mixture that my daughter had worked on the previous night to make us some pizza. So she had just worked with tomatoes, some tomato paste I had made at home. I need to share that recipe and share it in the description below. When you have a lot of overripe tomatoes, I had just put them in a pressure cooker, allowed them to cook for about 5 minutes or when the pressure is on, and then went in with my immersion blender and blended the tomatoes. When they had cooled, put them in containers and kept them in the freezer. So when I share that recipe, I will link it in the description below. So I had taken that mixture of tomatoes, she had taken rather, the mixture, added some spices, added some garlic, I believe some onion, and then she cooked that and she had that sauce. So that was leftover sauce that I added to this. And of course, as you have seen, I've also added some carrots for our vegetables. So our first batch is basically done. As you can see, the potatoes are very nice and crispy. That's why I said you can have them separately this way, but you will see what I will do to make them into a one-pot meal. So either way can work. So we will go in with our second batch as we continue working on our sauce. So a few minutes later, our carrots are having a head start actually, because as you know, carrots can take a little longer. So a few minutes later, just going in to stir this. Then I'm going to add in our minced meat. Again, this is leftover minced meat from a pizza my daughter was making. When I buy beef, especially in these tough economic times, when the Lord gives us creativity, I'm also adding some of the water that came from the potatoes. I love to stretch a kilogram of meat. So she had done 2 pizzas with it, and now we had some leftover beef, about 2 cups, I would say, of cooked mince. So that's what I'm incorporating in here. And then we will cover, so adding some water just to keep it wet as much as possible. Remember, again, I'm using the water that came from the potatoes. So be careful with your salt, because remember that water is also salted. And then allow it to just heat up now that the mince was cold. So once everything has come together, I'm now adding in my potatoes. That's why I said this one, I'll turn it into a one-pot meal and stir the potatoes in, ensuring that they are all covered with the sauce we have just made. So just a simple way of working on a dinner recipe with some veggie, a little veggie, the carrots, the potatoes, and then some of the mince. So once this is covered, I will sprinkle the top with some cheese. Again, I am running out of my homemade mozzarella cheese. I have not dared to buy cheese because it's quite expensive in our country. So I sprinkled on some, but I would say this recipe would work even better if you had a lot of cheese. I mean, it just works wonderfully with a lot of cheese. So put it on very low heat so that it could cook for about 10 minutes. It's kind of like you're having it in the oven, but because our oven kind of ran down, we are not using the oven now. We are using this as stovetop way of baking. So after 10 or so minutes, actually the point is just to have the cheese to melt over the potatoes. So if you had a lot of cheese on the surface, I know the recipe would even be wonderful, but this was so good just as it is. So we will serve, and that's our first meal that again you can work with as it is, or you can modify it to just suit the way you would love. And you can also have, who knows, even more vegetables on the side. So this is the next day. Again, we get to our second meal, and our second meal is an easy, again budget-friendly pilau recipe, where we are beginning by working on our onion. Again, all the ingredients will be in a PDF that I've linked in the description below. So once we have fried our onion until it is a golden color, we will add our garlic as well as our ginger that we have finely grated. So we will stir this until we get to a dark golden color. Actually, it's almost like you are burning the onion, but not quite. When it just looks like it's about to burn, that's where we want to get it. Not burnt and yet a dark golden color, because that's what will cause you to have pilau that is nicely dark with no natural darkener, no soy sauce. It's just dark because of that. So we will now add our tomato and our tomato paste. I have a dear friend from the coast who taught me how to cook very nice pilau. She would tell me pilau without tomato paste is not pilau at all. Yeah, so tomato paste just adds some kind of taste if you really want that very nice coastal pilau. Now that we know our friends from the coast are very good, especially the East African coast, when it comes to making very delightful pilau. So I allowed it on some low heat for about 2 to 3 minutes, again to get the tomatoes to get tender. And that's what I'm doing, just crushing them on the side of my saucepan so that they can form a nice puree. So once this has happened, we will add the salt and we will add the pilau masala spice. Again, a recipe that I've done on this channel of how to make your own pilau masala at home, as well as on our website on the blog. I will link the blog in the description below in case you would love to make your own pilau masala at home. Now that we know it's very aromatic, the spices are still fresh, and so it's a good one. So cover so that the spices can cook for about a minute or two, and then we go in with our beans, because this is bean pilau. Our pre-cooked beans, I normally will cook beans, boil them after soaking them, because soaking of course makes them even healthier, overnight. I soak them overnight and then boil, keep them in either Ziploc bags or containers. So I got these beans from the freezer, allowed them to defreeze, and now we have gone in with our beans, just made them a little wet with the water that we will use for the rice. So again, allow about a few minutes, I would say, because you just want the beans to get hot now that they were not hot. So give them a stir. So we go in with our rice that I had already prepared and washed, so it's not dripping with water, it's just washed and ready to go into the pan. So ensure to stir so that everything mixes well, all the ingredients together with the rice, as I'm doing. We will now add our hot water and stir the rice. We will cover and bring it to a boil, and once it is boiling, uncover and just stir it so that it's not sticking at the bottom of the pan, and then lower the heat significantly. I find this a wonderful way of saving on heat when you're able to allow your rice to cook on very low heat until all the water is gone. So you just keep checking on it until all the water is gone. So It's now come to a boil. Like I said, that's why I'm stirring it. So once I cover, we will now allow it on very low heat until all the water is gone. So that's the heat I'm talking about. So at this point, as you can see, all the water is gone, but some of the ingredients are on the surface. So just going with your fork, carefully and gently fluff the rice, all the rice, not just the surface, because you want these ingredients to mix well into the rice. So gently do this so that the rice can continue to be just nice and fluffed up really well. So we will now cover and allow the rice now to cook for about 10 minutes so that at least all of the water is gone and it's just nice. And then we will continue. So now we are done, so just fluffing it a little, and we are basically ready with our bean pilau rice. So I love to experiment a lot with cereals or grains to do my rice, and I know on this channel I've also done a recipe where I worked with lentils. So you could also experiment with other kinds of legumes and enjoy your rice. So we will now serve our rice with some kachumbari or salsa. My daughter did this, she forgot to capture it on video, but I have a recipe and I'll link it in the PDF of how we make very simple kachumbari. And this is a mixture of onion, tomato. I also used red pepper. That's why you can see everything is red. You can also add, I said I'm low on my groceries, but I also like to add, like that description below, I'll show you, I like to also add green pepper. I also love to add, what is this? Dhania or cilantro. So that's what we served our rice with on this second day with our kachumbari. So I trust that's a dinner recipe you could explore. Like I said, you can also explore working with other legumes. You can also explore working with another kind of vegetable, whether it's guacamole, or any other vegetable you would love. Could even be sauteed cabbage. I know you will enjoy this a lot. Or just fried vegetables or sauteed vegetables of your liking. So try this recipe also. I trust you will enjoy it as well. So we get to our third recipe, a type of paratha. That's a type of chapati that I modified, but I will share the version that I will usually work with in the PDF and explain what I did with this, because why I worked with this was this week, like I said, I hadn't gone for my grocery shopping, and I thought I still will share how creative I try to be when I'm working with low groceries. So this is cold water. I just added some salt and then stirred it in, and 2 tablespoons of cooking oil, and got to work with my flour to make a soft dough. With this particular recipe, I like to work with layered chapatis, but this particular one I thought I don't want to layer it because it was already late in the evening. This day I was working with the paratha, so that's why I preferred to put the cooking oil in the water, as you saw, rather than applying it to make the layers. So this is an easier recipe. Perhaps this is what I should also share, especially if you're not working with layered chapati. So I probably will share both recipes in the description because I love both of them. So I have worked with dough and come up, as you saw, a very soft dough, as you can see. So I'm going to allow it to rest for about 20 or so minutes. This makes it very easy in that a lot of times I skip kneading my chapati doughs because of this process. Now that It doesn't have a lot of ingredients, so when you allow it to rest for about 20 to 30 minutes, usually it will relax. You can even allow it to rest longer. It will have relaxed very well. You probably may not necessarily need to knead it. I don't usually need my chapati doughs. They just turn out well after this step. So we are going to boil some potatoes. I will usually work with I would talk of about 3 large potatoes. These ones I've cut them in halves because they are small potatoes, so they are more. But if you have large potatoes, just aim for about 3 large potatoes and you're good to go. So we will cover, and I've put some salt to taste, and then we will allow them to cook until they are ready. So we can see our dough is well relaxed because this is about 20 minutes or 30 minutes later, as you can see. So basically we will begin to work on it. So transfer it to the surface, as I'm doing, a surface that is dusted. Now that we know this dough is very soft, as you have seen. So I'm proceeding to divide this dough into 8 equal pieces. So I will work on them to form very nice round shapes, actually round balls. So once I've done that to all of them, we will now proceed to work on our filling, now that our potatoes are basically ready. So those ones you boil until they are soft so that you can mash them. So there we go. We will drain them, and as always, I will not get rid of this water unless somehow I forget to use it, but usually I like to add it to my stews, and we will add it to our simple sauce that we will make to go along with our paratha. Mash the potatoes. To this we will add our onion and our grated garlic, finely grated. For our protein, we are going to add our cheese. So I'm adding some spices also. So just working with pepper and paprika. Those are the spices that I still have left before I go for more. So I'm going to add about 2 or so cups of mozzarella cheese. I honestly would want to try working with mashing all the other ingredients except the cheese, and then sprinkling the cheese on this mixture rather than stirring it in, because usually when you stir it in, you may not feel the cheese. It tastes a lot, but at least you know you have your protein. So you could perhaps add to the potato mixture the spices and the onion and garlic, mix that to form this mixture, and then as you place filling into the chapati, sprinkle the cheese around it instead. I think that would also work wonderfully. I'm going to try that as much as I'm saying, because that's the thought that came to my mind as I was doing this. Remember, this is my original paratha recipe. I had modified it a little. The other thing I would say is, if you have cilantro tastes very well also in this recipe. You can also cut it, chop it up. That's the original recipe. I'll share in the PDF as well. If you chop it up, you will also come up with a very nice paratha that has some greenery in it. The original one, I also added some spring onion again to add the green, because the spring onion also just gives it a very nice taste. So now we will come back to our pieces that we worked on. So remember, if you have a larger family, you could work with double this, but for what I find with paratha is it's very heavy. It's very heavy, so usually you'll be good to go even with 1 piece. But if you have a bigger family or you have teens, you probably may need to double this recipe. So as you've seen, I've taken one of the pieces because I divided the filling again into 8 equal pieces. Well, try to be as equal as possible. expanded the chapati piece a little with my fingers and then sealed that piece within the chapati piece, and then just pressed it and set it aside and work so that I could work on at least 2 or 3 more before I start rolling out, because my pan is already on the fire getting hot. It's already on my stove, so I like to have a head start. Also, when you have more pieces, as you know, perhaps if you've been on this channel longer, you know I like to use more than one pan when I'm working on chapatis to make it easier. But for this one, because I'm also working with demonstrating it on YouTube, I only worked with one pan, so just did one after another, because of course when you're filming it takes longer. So this is now the filled chapati that I'm going to roll out. Also, I'm working with 8 pieces because my pan is quite large. It is a 12-inch in diameter pan. If you have a smaller pan, remember you can make smaller paratha pieces or chapati pieces and therefore smaller filling. But if you have a big pan like mine, you can work with 8 pieces as I'm doing, and then we will continue. So you can see the beautiful filling that you can see in there. I'm dusting my plate so that I could use it to transfer this to my stovetop. So again, just working on a second one so that I have a head start, like I said. Because if you're working with more pans, of course, you will need to have at least 3 already rolled out. So our pan is just hot enough. So we will place our first piece on the pan and allow that piece to dry fry initially for a few seconds almost. Or what you need to see is just to see it's beginning to turn color. Sometimes it starts forming bubbles on the surface. So I will apply about a tablespoon of cooking oil on the surface and turn it over, and I will keep swirling it around the pan, both to spread out the cooking oil and also just to cause it to, have those delightful, what are they called, air pockets within it. For some reason, my first ones normally don't form. That first one will normally not form that delightful big, you can see air pockets, but you may not see them as distinctly as the second and the third. I don't know whether it's because they have rested a little, I'm not sure, but to form very nice, delightful pockets, sometimes a big air pocket that is just delightful. But as you can see, this one is forming. You may not see very well, but at least it's forming some air pockets. So fry on one side like I did, and then apply on the top side and turn it over so that it can also cook, so that on both sides you have applied some cooking oil and allowed it to cook just the way you have seen me do. And again, to keep this video not too long, I just thought to show you with this first one, and then we will also have a vegetable dip, crushed vegetable dip, if I would say, because it's like a sauce on the side that we're going to prepare in a short while. I've prepared this sauce before when we were doing our breakfast recipes, but let me just repeat it just in case you're watching this video for the first time. So what I will do, because I like to keep it as simple as possible, I'd already cut my onion and tomato, and then I have my garlic. There I'm going to put everything in the saucepan. I will add some paprika. I will add some black pepper. This is not a big amount of sauce, so if you're not very excited about hot pepper, just put about 1/4 teaspoon, or else you will hear it being very hot, this sauce or dip. And then I've also added some salt, about 1/4 to 1/3 teaspoon, because like I said, this is not a lot. So stir that in. You can also add a few drops of water. So stir these ingredients, place on your flame, and once it starts simmering, allow to cook for about 3 to 5 minutes at least, until the tomatoes are soft on low heat. So at this point, it's been cooking for about 2 to 3 minutes. So added the water that came from the potatoes, about half a cup, because that will also help with the thickness. Stirred and then lowered the heat and went in with my immersion blender. Usually I don't blend necessarily finely. I just like to blend to reduce the roughage a little, just to make it into a nice, fairly smooth sauce, but not too smooth. So it's just a little, so that even if you don't have an immersion blender, you can go in with your masher and just ensure that it is smooth enough. So what I did is, after I had blended it a little, I covered and allowed it to cook for about 5 minutes, just to boil it a little down to make this sauce heavy. And that was it. We were done with our sauce. So those are our paratha ready, and our meal is basically ready. So we get to our next meal. This is a very simple, budget-friendly, I would say affordable pizza recipe. So I'm working with the dough. I'm working personally with the sourdough, but I will share in the PDF below both the sourdough version of our pizza crust and the yeast version, because I have both of them on the channel and also on the blog. But it's good to just share both in case you're watching me and you're not yet on the sourdough journey, or you just prefer working with yeast, or you don't have a lot of time and so you're making this pizza in the evening and you need to work with yeast. You can use that. So for this, I added my sourdough starter and my cooking oil in a bowl together with some water, and then added to that the dry ingredients, as you saw, the flour, the bicarbonate of soda to reduce the sourness, and some salt, and mixed all that and got to this dough. I covered it and allowed it to rest for 30 minutes initially, and then I knead it on the surface for about 5 minutes, and then now cover and allow it to bulk ferment. For the pizza sauce, I worked on a very simple sauce. As you can see, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of cooking oil, some onion as well as garlic in my pan. So again, that's the tomato I was talking about, where I had crushed my tomatoes, kept in little containers like that, and then kept in the freezer. So when I've run out of tomatoes, usually that's the tomato paste homemade that I run to when I need tomatoes. So I had my onion, as you saw, because I'm trying to work on our pizza sauce base, a very simple one, as you will see in the ingredients, because I will share in the description below on the PDF. I'll show you the process and allow it to cook on, especially when it gets to simmer, lower the heat and allow it to cook until it's ready, usually about 5 to 10 minutes. If you want to add spices, you can also add and allow it to cook until it's cooked down in a way that you can now work with it on your pizza without it being too wet. It's just heavy enough. Let's begin to assemble our pizza. So we will get to our dough, beat it down, divide it into 2, and then we will have one piece in one pan and the other piece in the other. This recipe makes 2 pizzas on wide pans, again without an oven, but you can always work with the oven. On the side, also part of the filling, like I said, this is a very budget-friendly recipe. I have done a simple scrambled egg recipe. I love scrambled egg pizza. It's delicious. If you're low on supplies or looking for some, budget-friendly pizza, try this one. You're going to love it. It's very tasty. Set it aside so that it could cool. So that's the sauce I was working on. Put it down until it was just thick and heavy enough, as you can see. So half of it is on this pizza and the other half will be on the other. So began by sprinkling some homemade mozzarella cheese that I've grated on the base. Again, I like to grate when it is still a bit frozen so that it's easier to grate, and then went in with half of the scrambled egg so that the other one I could put on the other pizza. Sprinkled on the cheese. So I'd done both pizzas, so sprinkled them again on the surface with a little salt. Remember, most of the ingredients are salted, so it's just a little cover. You can bake in the oven, but if you're not baking with an oven, if you're working with a small burner on the lowest setting, so allow it fast on hot for about 20 to 30 seconds just to heat up the pans, and then reduce that way to the lowest setting. If you're working with a wider one, reduce as though you're switching off and get to a very tiny flame. That is the flame that won't burn your pizzas. So at this point they are ready. This is about 30 or 35 minutes later. The cheese has melted beautifully and we are good to go. So enjoyed this one a lot. And I trust you will enjoy if you're looking for a budget-friendly pizza recipe. Our final recipe. We got some collard greens, that is sukuma wiki, as well as spinach, a lot of it. So I washed, cut it up, boiled it for just a few minutes with a little water, allowed it to cool, and then we stored it in the freezer. So this is one of the packs that I had removed earlier so that it could thaw. Usually when I have frozen vegetables, I like to add fresh vegetables, and because outside I have my sweet potatoes thriving, my amarantha vegetable, we call it terere in our country. So I went and picked some from outside. I'm going to cut it up so that I add to these frozen vegetables, because I find sometimes if they are frozen they may not feel as fresh as when you have them. That's why I'm going to wash these sweet potato leaves. I'm going to wash the amarantha or terere, cut them up, and then we will cook all this together, as you will see, so that we have, yes, the frozen vegetables, but we also have the sukuma wiki or collard greens as well as our spinach. So begin by frying the onion until a light golden color. Again, go in with my tomato paste, because this whole week I hadn't gone for my groceries, so this is the tomato I was using. So just pouring in enough of what I would need. This is about, I would say, if I was working with tomatoes, perhaps 2 to 3 tomatoes, medium size. So usually once I've removed a container of that tomato paste, I put it in the fridge so that I keep using it until it's done for about 2 to 3 days. So once our onion was a light golden color, added the paste, covered, allowed 2 or so minutes for it to cook, and then now added in the salt. You can also add spices. I didn't do that. And then now we can add the vegetables. So when I mix them, I feel like now we are good with our vegetables. We are not just eating frozen vegetables, but we have added in some fresh. I like to do this, especially if I have frozen vegetables. So cover so that the fresh ones can cook down. And meanwhile, working on our ugali. Of course, if you're not an ugali person, you could do the vegetables with any other accompaniment you would like. But as you know, in Kenya, we love our ugali. At least it forms one of our meals. And if you come from where I came from, in the part of our country, almost daily we will eat our ugali. Basically hot water, and you add in maize meal. So you either buy it in the shop directly, or you can go to the portion mill and you will have it ground for you. Usually the portion mill is wonderful because you will have it whole. So that's how we cook our ugali. I have a recipe also on the channel. I will link below, but I will also have the process in the PDF that is linked below. Yeah, so our vegetables have cooked down quite. So we will add our cream again for our protein. So that's a cream that I will usually freeze, just keep storing it and freeze, and some of course that I had just collected from some milk I had boiled just the previous day, so it went in as well. So mix that in and allow it to cook for about 2 or 3 minutes, until the cream has melted into the vegetables and it's just good to go. Usually you will love these vegetables. I'm sure those who've eaten know what I'm talking about. You can add even more cream if you have, but usually about a cup is good for this amount of vegetables. So those are the meals that I trust you will love, meals that I trust you will enjoy. Yeah, so try them. I hope they have given you some inspiration to know what to do with what you have in the pantry, even when it's a low budget season, or just when you need to work with what you have in the pantry, or you just want some inspiration for what you already have and are wondering what to do. I hope these recipes will be helpful. As always, enhance your hospitality for the glory of God. Do not forget to get your PDF of those very recipes in the description below. You could check out this one here. This is of course our easy breakfast recipes, also a very easy, very delicious breakfast recipes you will enjoy. You could check out this video next as you wait for our next one. Thank you so much for joining me. See you in that next video or in this one right here.